Is it finally time for the Dallas Mavericks to potentially move on from Kristaps Porzingis? This is the Gray Area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there. For all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube, you can catch you on your home with the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers. 105.3 The Fan. As the Dallas Mavericks get ready to take on the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, the Boston Celtics, and the New Orleans Pelicans in their next 4 games, when will Kristaps Porzingis be back? Porzingis is going to miss his 4th consecutive game against the Miami Heat, and his status going forward from there is still unknown. The Dallas Mavericks will engage in their 7th game against the Miami Heat before they play their next 3 against the Spurs, the Celtics, and the Pelicans. Now, Porzingis, with the game missed against the Miami Heat, will have missed 4 of the first 7 games of the season. And over the 2+ years for Porzingis, he's played in only 103 of a possible 153 games. Is it time for the Mavericks to finally potentially move on for Porzingis? Now you say, Kevin, now hold on. Coming into the season, all you told us was, hey, Porzingis is healthy. He's come in healthy. All he had to do was work on his game during the offseason. And that's what a lot of us had said. And that was what Porzingis had said himself, was that he had been able to work on his body, not have to work on anything in terms of rehab, and come into this season just focusing strictly on his game, where Jason Kidd was supposed to help Kristaps Porzingis get back to some of what he was in New York when he was an all-star with the New York Knicks. But the problem now is starting to become, how reliable is Kristaps Porzingis going to be going forward for a team that needs him to be able to have the kinds of aspirations that the Mavericks believe they are supposed to have this season? His unreliability at this point is a major concern, and for me personally, it's a bigger concern knowing that he has missed now 4 games due to low back tightness. It's not something you would think on the periphery would feel like something that you would miss this many games for. But as this thing has gone on, to me, there is much more concern than meets the eye when it comes to Porzingis and his injury. That's a major problem for a Mavericks team that invested $158 million into Kristaps Porzingis, who's owed over $30 million over the next few seasons, and there are real concerns on whether or not he can actually become the kind of player consistently in terms of his health that the Mavericks need him to be. There have been real times where Kristaps Porzingis has shown why the Mavericks traded for him. You think about the stretch that he had right before the bubble in Orlando, where he was playing some of the best basketball of his career. Then he gets into the bubble in Orlando, has a 34-13 game against the Los Angeles Clippers, and really showed why the Mavericks traded for him and gave up the compensation that they did to bring him to Dallas. But then he tears his meniscus, is unable to start the season this past year, and then continuing to deal with other ailments, whether it be a knee or now, in this case, a back, various ailments throughout the 2+ years. Will there be a time where Mark Cuban, Nico Harrison, and this front office with Michael Finley and others decide that it's an idea to cut bait with Porzingis? Now, I've said this. Whether you are a detractor or a supporter of Porzingis, he has to be on the floor in order for the Mavericks to not only be successful in terms of what they feel like their aspirations are in the Western Conference, but even if you feel like Kristaps Porzingis needs to be moved in order to get pieces to help build a championship roster going forward, you need Porzingis to be healthy and on the floor, and he simply has not been able to do so. So what real trade value does Kristaps Porzingis have at this particular point when he can't stay on the floor to prove that he's a productive player and to do so consistently enough for a team to think that they could trade for him, that he would be consistently on the floor for them to be a contender for whoever team he goes to? That's the conundrum that the Mavericks find themselves in. Whether or not Kristaps Porzingis gets healthy, and if he does, the other catch is, if he proves to be the kind of player that they traded for him and is able to stay healthy and on the floor for long stretches of time, the Mavericks will feel like they have won the trade. But we won't know that unless Kristaps Porzingis finds his way onto the floor, and to do so consistently for long stretches of time without having to sit games. Now, load management is always going to be a part of Kristaps Porzingis' career. He's 7'3", and he has a body type that could lend itself to these kinds of injuries. He's already had surgery on a meniscus, surgery for an ACL. He's dealt with other ailments throughout his career. And some folks will say, Kevin, look, It's not his fault that he's 7'3" and his body won't allow him to do the kinds of things that he wants to given the skill set that he has. And I guess to some degree I understand that. But at the same time, this is what the Mavericks decided to invest in. A player who at 7'3", coming off of a torn ACL, think they could get the most out of him given his skill set that he has, and it simply hasn't worked. And I've been one of the ones that has said, look, Kristaps Porzingis has a certain skill set with his ability to stretch the floor from the three-point line, his ability to provide rim protection, which you've seen. Without him, they do not have a real interior presence when it comes to defense, no matter how good Maxi Kleber has been, and he's now dealing with a left oblique strain of his own that who knows how long will keep him out. So the Mavericks front court continues to be a question now. And that's the other part here. Not just Porzingis being out, but now real questions about the front court of this team going forward. No Maxi Kleber with a left oblique strain. No Kristaps Porzingis in terms of his lower back tightness that continues to bother him. Who do the Mavericks now turn to? Well, you say, Kevin, there's Willie Cauley-Stein. There's Moses Brown. There's Dwight Powell. There's Eugene Omoruyi. There are players that this team will have to now turn and look to try and supplement. Yes, Boban Marjanovic, a situational big for this team to try and provide some bolster in the front court. That's not the plan that you wanted to go into this season with, knowing that your season hinged a lot on the idea that Kristaps Porzingis would be able to be healthy going forward. Because right now, I don't even know what you can get for Kristaps Porzingis, even if you feel like now you need to move on from him, which a lot of folks who I talk to feel like it's time to move on from Kristaps Porzingis. But ultimately, that is the issue. Kristaps Porzingis cannot remain healthy on the floor. Is it time for the Mavericks to seriously consider moving on from him to figure out what they could possibly get for him? Or do they continue to go along with this experiment to try and figure out what the best solution is for the Mavericks and for Kristaps Porzingis long term? It's crazy because last year, Doncic and Porzingis were the most efficient pick-and-roll duo in all of the NBA. And you've seen at times the kind of music that they can make together offensively and the potential of what that looks like if Porzingis can remain healthy. We may never get to that full fruition of that pairing together because Porzingis' body simply won't allow him to. And I had said previously, some of the things that he was doing in terms of trying to take guys off the dribble, pulling up from mid-range, trying to pull and one moves with dribbles in between the legs and trying to drive and do things might be pretty taxing on his body. And for whatever reason now at this point, he still cannot remain healthy and on the floor. And for lower back tightness to continue to get to him is going to be an issue going forward. That is the problem now that if you're a Mavericks fan that ultimately bothers you. He can't stay healthy. When he's been on the floor this year, he's played okay at times, not shooting the ball well, but defensively still being okay. But the long-term effects of what he can be and what he's supposed to look like going forward is a major concern on whether or not this team can, A, get him to a point where he can consistently be on the floor to help this team win games, or B, be consistently on the floor enough to be a trade piece to get you something of value to help you build a championship contending team going forward. None of that right now seems to be the case because Porzingis simply can't stay on the floor, already having now missed what will be 57% of the Mavericks games. That ain't it. And for a dude getting paid $158 million, even me at this point is really concerned about the idea of his long-term viability going forward. The best ability is availability in sports, period. And in an NBA season where there's 82 games and Porzingis continues to show that he can't stay on the floor, especially in the beginning of this season for a majority of them, the question is, what are the Mavericks really doing here? Again, they don't want to feel like they lost a trade and don't maybe want to admit they will have lost a trade if they eventually move on from him. But hey, at least you got Tim Hardaway Jr. out of the deal. But at this point, it feels like a potential lost cause when it comes to the 7'3" Latvian unicorn, whom, again, we thought coming into the season would be healthy. And maybe he was. And maybe something this just happened to him to where he can't get on the floor, obviously. That doesn't alleviate the way that Mavericks fans like you may feel about him going forward. I guess we'll find out. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. It's been another episode of The Gray Area. I'll talk to you later. Peace.